Mr. Dale, these are extraordinary times, as you very well must know.
I don't understand.
The majority of this floor is being let go today.
Hello and welcome to What the Flick. We're gonna peel back the curtain. So you can see Ben messing with his hair, because it never happens. It's a rare sighting. Please mess with your hair on cue.
All right.
It's perfect, that sexy mane. We're gonna talk about Margin Call, ripped from the headlines, Margin Call, about the earliest moments of the 2008 economic collapse, and Alonso Duralde and all of his infinite wisdom and pithy insight is going to describe it.
Pithy it is. Yeah, it's a fictional film, but it is pretty much based, it takes place the night before the bubble burst, and an investment firm in New York that's just gone through a round of layoffs, a low-level risk management broker played by Zachary Quinto, digs through some work that his recently fired boss had been putting together, and realizes that the whole house of cards is about to come tumbling down. And as this news travels up the chain, the company has to take drastic measures to try and minimize their own damage and all this. Take a look.
Eric, I'm very sorry. I was working on something, but they wouldn't let me finish it. So take a look at it. Be careful.
Hello?
I need you guys to come back up here.
Wait a second.
Just trust me, okay? I need you guys back here now.
Wait a minute, what am I looking at?
This figure here.
Whoa, is that?
It gets ugly in a hurry.
Is that figure right?
Looks pretty right to me. There are $8 trillion of paper around the world relying on that equation.
But we were wrong.
No, you mean you were wrong.
Sir, if those assets decrease by just 25%, that loss would be greater than the current market capitalization of this entire company.
How long would it take to clear that from our books?
You cannot be doing what you're thinking of doing.
Sell it all today.
You're selling something that you know has no value.
So that we may survive. There are three ways to make a living in this business. Be first, be smarter, or cheat.
Look at these people wandering around with absolutely no idea what's about to happen.
You're a very important piece of this puzzle. Are you in on this?
I can tell you that people are going to say some very nasty things about what we do here today.
If we're going down, then you damn well know it'll be together.
I'm not sure that I do know that.
The ground is shifting below our feet. Remember this day, boys. Remember this day.
This is seemingly based on Lehman Brothers, but the outcome is different because there's this firm may, we don't know, this firm may survive.
Right.
But they're going to try and sell everything off that's worthless to people who are unsuspecting.
Right, so they've destroyed their reputation at the very
Completely,
least,
at
you
the
know,
very
while
least, yeah.
while also destroying the economy, you know. I think what's really cool about this movie, I mean, I loved Inside Job, which was the documentary that won the Oscar last year about how it all happened, and you know, that movie with pictures finally explained to me what the hell a credit default swap was, because God knows I can never figure it out. This movie really kind of gives you sort of the insider look and more sort of the human being look of how this stuff went down. I mean, it's a giant, complicated mess, but this really, I think, sort of narrows down to a combination of factors of, you know, hubris and people who were gambling and people who were taking advantage of deregulation and people who were all about the short term and not thinking about the long game. All that kind of stuff is going on in this movie, but it's divorced, you know, besides just sort of being this look at this catastrophe that recently happened, it's an interesting drama. Like, these are interesting characters, there's great dialogue. Some of the dialogue's a little too on the nose, you know, every so often, but it's a really compelling story. It could almost be a really good play.
It feels like a play. It feels like a David Mamet play, to be specific.
Yeah, because it's so contained.
Old David Mamet.
Yes.
Before David Mamet was crazy.
Exactly, before he became a loon.
Before he learned about jiu-jitsu.
Right, but you know, but yeah, it's very, very contained inside the building for the most part. It's all set over one night, but there's a real terseness to it, and I think I really like the way it works.
I thought Inside Job was the best movie last year, but this, you know, one of the things that obviously a documentary like Inside Job misses, and that many discussions about the financial collapse miss is the sort of the human nature of it, the stuff, the normal human emotions that drove some of this. And so, in a sense, that was refreshing to me to see how this could be such a human situation. But it's also incredibly distressing simultaneously, which is, again, I guess why I like this movie. But there's so much about this that is just simply people behaving like people, and which is ultimately why you need strict regulation, because this is what'll happen. It's not these weren't a bunch of people huddled in a thing saying, how are we going to destroy
they're not twisting their mustache, you know. Yeah.
No, they were.
But some of them are, though. The Jeremy Irons character is the Simon Baker character is the higher up at the firm.
But still, they didn't want this. They wanted things to continue, and they wanted
more money.
They wanted to stay on the gravy train, and then when the gravy train derailed, their first priority is CYA.
Right, totally, and that's what human beings do. Right, exactly.
And I like the running joke that like the absolute higher ups in the firm have no idea how to read these numbers. The Zachary Quinto has broken down. He's like, okay, tell it to me like I'm a 4-year-old.
I don't understand really good, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's the cadence of it is great. It is very Mammoty in just the masculinity of it and like the swagger of the dialogue and repetition of certain phrases, and so it is stagey and it is actorly. It does call attention to its structure quite a bit. You have Demi Moore talking to Jeremy Irons, and you have Kevin Spacey talking to Zachary Quinto, and Paul Bettany talking to whoever, and it's these little structured.
And how nice to see a good Paul
scenes.
Bettany movie, because I'm sure he's a talented actor, but everything I see him in is a big turd.
A Knight's Tale.
Like Priest and the other Legion. I mean, like I see him in all these dopey movies. So it's
with
nice to see. The Da Vinci Code. Right. So it's nice seeing something that's not ridiculous.
Yeah. Everyone's great in it. It's a great cast.
It's a real the cast is great, and I'm curious. One, like if this is cast with talented but lesser known people, whether it makes the same impact. I think it doesn't. I think this is why you invented movie stars. Right. I think it helps enormously that these are names that also deliver.
But if you had great actors who were unknown, they could immerse you in this just as effectively, I think, because the writing is there and the emotion is there.
Because the star appeal helps, but it's also very zeitgeisty.
Yeah, the stars couldn't carry it without sort of without the story
script,
and with that script. But I'm just now I wanted to ask about this because this is his first movie since he came out, Zachary Quinto, and because I think it's awesome, right? Because I used to think it didn't matter, and this is obviously it's a personal choice for everybody, and that obviously it should remain.
Whether to say so.
Whether to say so, right? But it does make a difference, and when we read these stories about these kids who are so conflicted when they're young, it really matters. And he's already apparently affected a ABC News anchor that was inspired by Zach. Look, if it keeps happening, at some point it's going to occur. Some 13-year-old kid somewhere is going to think, this isn't as bad as I thought it was. I actually think this has a tangible effect on people.
I can say, as a Mo myself, growing up, I think it would have helped greatly to know that, like, I wasn't not only that I wasn't the only one, but that it wasn't necessarily this horrible thing that only people who lived in the shadows and had no friends and were not part of decent society could be.
Yeah.
And in the 70s and 80s when I was growing up, we had, what's that line from The Opposite of Sex? We had Paul Lynde and Charles Nelson Riley, who I love, don't get me wrong.
Charles Nelson Riley gay?
Shocking, I know. I did his coming out interview for The Advocate. Anyway, but no, I think it's always a good thing that people in all walks of life. I want more athletes, now.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing, though. I think it's and hopefully there's that it just gets more actors more confident, because the second question then, if you take off the movie critic hat, put on the industry analyst cap. It's a cap.
They wear chapeaus, I believe.
Like that is that bowler? Does it hurt him in some way?
That's one of those intangibles, because there's no what's the thing in an experiment? There's no control group.
Right, there's no control group.
I don't know that Zachary Quinto was going to be the kind of actor who was going to be up for romantic leads, and thus now being openly gay might be an issue. He strikes me more as he has interesting taste in like stage stuff, and I think he's more interested in being a character actor. So I think for him,
he's interested in being a lead, but
and I mean, and his Spock is terrific. But I'm just saying he's he's got a very striking kind of countenance. He's not somebody that can just sort of easily be plugged into like some rom-com formula.
But I hope this doesn't make Star Wars and Star Trek fans rather think, oh God, Spock is gay and
I
feel differently toward him.
I think
not.
I give the geeks some credit. I think they tend to be more accepting of differences because they themselves feel like a marginalized group. And I mean, yeah, I'm sure there are redneck homophobe Trekkies out there, but I would like to think that they are very much the minority.
Who was the gayest member of the original Star Trek series? The character.
Well, Sulu, obviously.
Right, of course. Right. Silly, ridiculous question. There always will be work for Zachary Quinto in eyebrow fetish porn.
If such a thing exists, and since you mentioned it, it probably
I was going to
does.
say, you know about these things, of course.
It exists.
If you can think of it.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you want your numbers?
Anyway, good for him, and he was good in the film too. Numbers, yeah.
7.8.
7.8.
We like this movie.
Whatever. 8.2. I didn't do the math. Alonzo?
7.9.
Yeah, too easy. Okay, so check out Margin Call. It's good.
Bye.